This program is brought to you by the partners of A Rood Awakening International. Help others find truth. Support A Rood Awakening International today.
When made the biblical way, bread should not cause any of the issues we associated with it. But could it actually help the body reverse viral conditions? By special request from Michael Rood himself, Sue Becker shares amazing stories of disease eradicated and confidence restored. Plus, a how-to bread-making session with Sue in the kitchen tonight, because it's the end of the 6th day, the sun is set, and this is Shabbat Night Live.
As they take this message out into the world.
Well, there you are. What took you so long? I know it was a long week. Shabbat Shalom, Torah fans. Welcome to Shabbat Night Live with Michael Rood. Hey, before we get started on our episode tonight, we want to talk about something special happening on the astronomically and agriculturally corrected biblical Hebrew calendar. There you can see on your screen that this is the anniversary of the Sermon on the Mount. It was during this week in the year 27 CE that Yeshua taught his disciples that he had not come to destroy the Torah, but to fulfill it. And you can find it in the Chronological Gospels Bible. That is event number 62. So let's talk more about finding treasures like this with David Robinson and Michael Rood. Welcome.
Good to be here.
Thank you, Scott.
Now, Michael, speaking of treasures, some other treasure that you have spent a lot of time on, other than the Chronological Gospels, is the new Apostles' Creed. Tell us about this.
Yes, this was a result of many people at my home, and they said they really missed the different creeds and same thing in the church that they agreed to. And I said, wait just a minute. The Apostles' Creed is, he was born of a virgin and died under a Pilate. What happened to his whole life?
Right,
what
exactly.
happened to everything he
Missing something. That's
said?
exactly right.
It's insane. So I did a new Apostles' Creed. It had to be redone to get it right. And so we have the new Apostles' Creed, and this is something that we can all agree. It fits in with the chronological Gospels very well.
Amen.
It does. And I've often said, Michael, that, originally it started with the poster that you did and all the creeds were on there. Then we did a blanket with some of the more
we did the blanket
poignant,
condensed.
condensed version of it. And I often say to people, if people come to your house and, you're a Torah observant believer, and they say, what do you believe? All you'd have to do is point to that poster on the wall and say, that's what I believe. Just read it for a few minutes.
Yeah, we have the person that worked with my speech tell me she has it on her wall.
Oh, really?
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And so I may be a little bit slower, but I didn't stop. And I'm not going to give up.
Well, no, apparently not. You're up here on the stage doing just fine.
Those posters, people are all over the world order those all the time. We really have to keep reprinting those and keep reprinting those.
Wow.
And you notice how some items seem to be kind of like, okay, it'll sell for a little bit or whatever, or people donate to get it. But this continually, people are always
Now people say, let's get on that for a second. People say, well, why do you sell stuff? Well, okay, there's two avenues by which you can support A Rood Awakening. One is just through a straight donation, and well, three ways actually. Straight up donation, or you can, do a love gift and get something in return. Or whenever you buy something from the Rood store, that's a donation too, really. Because you're getting something in return, sure, but you're still supporting the ministry. You're allowing us to sit up here and do this and continue Michael's work and continuing doing the Chronological Gospel Season 3, by the way, which is still being worked on. And you saw the intro a couple weeks ago, and that's on YouTube now, so you can watch it there. Yes, sir.
Yeah, it was Nehemiah who corrected this and said that do what Moses said to do, and don't do what the Pharisees.
Right.
And so every year I produce this, so everybody has the opportunity to do what Yeshua said to do, and not follow the talking of the Pharisees.
Exactly.
And so this is our opportunity opportunity.
That's right. And speaking of the poster, that is the theme of this year's calendar, if you didn't recognize the correlation there, because these are photos that our lighting director, Terry, took from all over the place, mostly in Israel.
They're beautiful.
Yeah, and
really
so he
pics.
took those photos, and we put with the photos sections from your New Apostles' Creed poster. So really, the New Apostles' Creed is in here as well if you didn't have the poster, but you might as well get both and have both to benefit from. So yeah, that is a beautiful thing. I love the New Apostles' Creed because it really does fill in the blanks for someone who's saying, well, what do you believe?
Yeah, because we get asked that all the time.
Right.
I mean, if we have people over for a Bible study, people always go, wait a minute, the law's done away with, and you just go, this is going to take a while, but I'm going to explain to you. But having that poster and just reading it and sharing it with people, it really helps you to convey exactly what we believe.
Now, Michael, correct me if I'm wrong. That all started because people had asked us in the ministry all the time. They said, well, what does Michael believe? Put out a statement of faith. And you always said, I'm not putting out a statement of faith. I don't want to put God in a box, right?
Yeah. This is not putting him in a box. This is what we believe because the Bible teaches it.
That's right.
And so this we can stand on.
Absolutely. Yep, there's some good stuff in there. Now, speaking of what we can stand on, one of the most famous verses in the Bible is John 3:16. And we had a friend, Joe Kovacs, come here and teach us something different about John 3:16. It doesn't change the verse, but it sure opens your mind as to what Yehovah thinks of us as a people in this world. Interesting stuff. And that's the premise of revisiting John 3:16. This is Michael's gift to you from Joe. Get that straight in your head. For a donation of $50 and more, we'll just give this to you. We want to say thanks for supporting what we do. Here, have this teaching for your donation. And that's for a donation of $50 or more. And this month, if you want to give a little more than that, $100, David, you got something extra we want to give.
Yes, I have
What's
this beautiful
that?
sterling silver necklace with Hebrew text that states Deuteronomy 6:4, which Yeshua said was the greatest commandment. And this is for $100, you get the teaching and this. And for a gift of $300 or more, you get this beautiful tablecloth that measures 60 by 108, if I'm not mistaken. And you also get, in addition to that, this beautiful challah bread cover. And as you can see, it has a 7-branch menorah, the Kiddush cup, or at Passover, it could be your Elijah
That'd be
cup.
great for Shabbat.
Yeah, great. It's beautiful. And the material's really nice. And it's just a little something we can do to give back to you for helping this ministry.
Now, speaking of the material,
I'm say something about the material.
Oh, yeah, right.
Oh,
yes,
yeah, you're exactly right. When you do order this and get it, there's a tag on it. Make sure you cut this tag off. It gives you the washing instructions. You do not want to pull on it because this material is very fine and you would end up ripping your challah bread cover.
There you go. Now, speaking of bread, here's what we're going to see tonight. Take a look.
If bread could strengthen your immune system so much, so quickly, to help you protect yourself from a viral invasion, which, what are we so concerned about today? That causes wards? What else could it protect you from?
All right, so there you go. That is coming up very, very soon. Michael, David, thank you for joining us. By special request from Michael Rood himself over here, Sue Becker shares an amazing story of stories plural, of disease eradicated and confidence restored just through bread. How about that? Plus a how-to bread making session tonight with Sue in the kitchen. So first, it's time for the Kiddush with Michael. Speaking of bread, that's coming up next.
John 3:16 is arguably the most famous verse in the Bible. But are we misinterpreting it? Joe Kovacs presents a thought-provoking teaching that re-examines what the verse really means, how we should understand it, and why a proper interpretation of it is vital to understanding Yehovah's view of the world and the sacrifice of his Son.
He can't be telling us, don't love the world and the things of the world, and also saying that, well, God loves the world so much. They're just completely contradictory. And the key to understanding this verse is the very simple, short word, so.
Revisiting John 3:16 with Joe Kovacs will challenge your assumptions about the true message of Yehovah's Word. And it's our gift to you for supporting A Rood Awakening International. Donate a $50 love gift and we'll send you Revisiting John 3:16 with Joe Kovacs on DVD or Blu-ray. Or donate $100 and we'll send you Revisiting John 3:16, plus a beautiful silver-plated pendant necklace featuring the Shema in Hebrew letters. Or donate $300 and we'll send you the teaching, the silver-plated Shema necklace, plus this dazzling Shabbat tablecloth and matching challah bread cover, inlaid with artwork from the menorah, the Kiddush cup, and the words Shabbat Shalom in Hebrew. These gifts are a limited time offer from Michael Rood to thank you for your support. Make your donation today and receive the $50 gift, the $100 gift, or the $300 gift. These special gift collections are available only in July, and supplies are limited. So make your donation today and receive these exclusive thank you gifts from Michael Rood. Call 888-766-3610. That's 888-766-3610. Or get your gifts online at monthlylovegift.com.
The traditions that we have in modern-day Judaism remind us of what we did in the temple, and some of these traditions go back long before the temple in Jerusalem. It reminds us of when Melchizedek, the king of righteousness, brought forth bread and wine to Abraham when he came back from the slaughter of kings, and Melchizedek, the Melchizedek, the king of righteousness, blessed the Most High with the blessing that Abraham then taught to his son Isaac and then was passed down through the generations. Yeshua said, Abraham saw my day and he rejoiced. He gave a tenth of everything because he saw the broken body and the shed blood. Melchizedek, as Abraham and all of his offspring, then continue to say this prayer of sanctification. Baruch atah Yehovah, Eloheinu melech ha'olam, hamotzi lechem mi'haaretz. Blessed are you, Yehovah, our God, King of the universe, who brings forth bread from the earth. And Yeshua said, this bread represents my body, which will be broken for you. And this is what Yeshua said the last night that he was with his disciples. This represents his broken body that was broken for us. And then the blessing of the wine. Baruch atah Yehovah Eloheinu melech haolam borei peri hagafen. Blessed are you, Yehovah, our God, King of the universe, creator of the fruit of the vine. And Yeshua said, this is a renewed covenant, which will be paid for in my blood. As often as you do this in remembrance of me.
Have you ever had a wart? I'm sure you have. I've had warts in the past. Well, what do? You go to the drugstore, you get some Compound W. You put it on there and mom puts a bandage around it and you treat it for the next week and then it goes away. Well, then it comes back. Well, then you go to see the dermatologist or you do some other doctor visit. But is there another way of getting rid of warts and other ailments just by changing what you eat, specifically eating bread the way it is meant to be made? Sue Becker,
yes,
help us out with this. Warts and bread? What's the connection here?
I have a great wart story.
Okay,
Some people have war stories. I have a wart story. I have war stories too, but wart story. So way back before bread, I always say before bread, when my oldest daughter was 3 years old, she began to get warts. So I was like, okay. So I took her to the doctor, being the good mom that I am. The doctor says, no worry. He was very nutritionally minded. He goes, no worry. Warts are a manifestation of a viral infection.
Okay,
a lot
makes
of
sense.
us don't know that, but they're a virus. And he said, it'll run its course and it'll go away. So I left going, yay, no medicine, whatever. We go home thinking it's going to run its course in a couple of weeks and be gone, right? So no, 2 years go by and she now has warts spread on her fingers or elbow and a very large one on the back of her heel that hurt when she wore shoes. And a 6-year-old, well, she was, 6-year-old has to wear shoes to church and places like that. But anyway, so then my second child, my son, he was 3, he just started getting them. What we don't realize is they are contagious. They are a virus, though you get them from surfaces. Usually, a lot of people pick them up in a gym or a shower or sides of the pool. My youngest daughter got one right here. That's where she pushed up to get out of the pool, when we were traveling so much and staying in hotels. But anyway, so my second son, 3 years old, he started getting warts. So by this time it was like, okay, something's got to be done about this large wart on my daughter's foot. So I take her back to the doctor. He sends us to a specialist. I love it when we go to the specialist, right? So we go I was thinking, we're going to go in there with the warts. We're going to come out without them. And you can see, I didn't take my 3-year-old that was just starting. I was really just wanted that one wart. Well, anyway, I thought he would burn it off, scoop it off, take a little knife and cut it off, whatever. Nope, that was not the case. He gave us a little bottle of acid that we were supposed to put on all of her warts. Well, this burned her little 6-year-old tender skin, and we didn't get the acid on, so we went back, again thinking he's going to do something different when I tell him this isn't working. Nope, he sent us home with a new method of trying to get the acid on these warts, put Vaseline around. Well, Vaseline is always, it just rolled off there and went somewhere else. We'd scrub. Anyway, it was a nightmare. And this went on for several weeks and actually turned into several months. Well, each time we would go, he'd pick at the warts to see if they were dead. And now first I think we need to tell people how this acid works. Does nothing for the wart. It actually is burning the healthy skin that is holding that wart onto your skin. That's what makes it fall off. Remember, it's a virus, and this is another problem. In America, we tend to treat the symptom and not the cause. So anyway, months go by, he picked at the warts each time, and she would scream and cry because it hurt. I mean, and they would even bleed. They weren't, and even though I told him, we didn't get the acid on there, they're not dead, it's not dead. So anyway, finally, I was distraught. Like I said, this has been going on now for several months. I was distraught, and I just said, I think we need to do something else. And he goes, yeah, I think you're right, but because your daughter is so traumatized and crying. I mean, she was crying when we drove in the parking lot because she knew what was about to come. And he said, they brought in the straitjacket and they were going to put her to sleep to get the warts off. And I didn't even hang around long enough to ask what they were going to do, but I left that day. And I went, no, this is not for us today. No. So I left, and on the drive home, I remembered something that I had read years before children, before bread for sure, before children even. You remember I told you that when I graduated college, I kept reading and I just studied and read and different nutrients. Well, I read some works, particularly by Adele Davis, and she had a whole chapter on vitamin E. Vitamin E, very important for the female reproductive system. Well, back in college and first years of marriage, I didn't have monthly cycles, didn't care. I might have one a year. I didn't care. But when you start thinking about children, having children, you're like, this is an important aspect of this whole cycle. So in Adele Davis's book, she talked about vitamin E being critical for regulating females' reproductive cycle. So I had begun to take vitamin E. Started having normal cycles, started having children, So I've got a funny story there too, I'll tell you in a minute. Okay. But anyway, so on my ride home that day, it just came to me. And I can remember almost seeing the line in the book, in her book, in the chapter on vitamin E that said vitamin E has been known to get rid of warts. It was just one little sentence. It came to me. And I'm like, my goodness, I have vitamin E at home. I'm taking it so that, these cycles will be normal. And so I get home and I'm like, it's worth a try. What have I got to lose? I've got it. So I began to give my 2 children their vitamin E supplements. And within a week, my son, who had just started getting the warts, his warts were gone. In just 3 weeks, it took about 3 weeks for that very large one on the back of my daughter's heel to go completely away. With vitamin E supplements. That's amazing to me. I was like, I had the answer. So some years go by, my 3rd child, 3 years old. I haven't figured that out yet, what the thing with 3 years old. He started getting warts as well. So I'm like, great, I know the answer. We don't have to go to the doctor. I'll just give you vitamin E. Now, mind you, this is all before bread, okay? The richest food source of vitamin E there is. It's all before bread. So unfortunately, Joshua could not swallow the capsules. They were tiny little gelatin capsules. If you've ever seen vitamin E, they're pretty, just put them in. Yeah. They should go right down. They're not like a stiff pill, a hard pill. And so anyway, he couldn't swallow them. So I just had to let it go. I was like, well, warts were not priority in my life at that point. I had become convicted that children were a blessing from the Lord. I would let the Lord control the number of children I have because, I'm like, if they're a blessing, I don't ask the Lord not to give me any other blessing. Why would I, So that was kind of my conviction. I let the Lord control the number of children I have, and I laugh and say he didn't control it at all the way I thought he would. And so by the time Joshua was 3, he had 2 younger siblings. I had 3 children in 3 years. I love my children very, very much. And but you can see I was tired. Warts weren't a priority. If he could have swallowed the pill, just swallow it. We would have been fine. So I let it go, not to worry. So 2 years go by. The mill comes into our home. Wheat, the richest food source of vitamin E, if it is freshly milled, and the germ is intact. So the bran and germ and the wheat germ oil, most people have heard of wheat germ oil as a rich food source of vitamin E. Has to be freshly milled though, because vitamin E oxidizes very quickly. So the bread comes into our home without any vitamin E supplements. In the first month, I looked down and Joshua's warts are all gone. All gone. I knew what it was. I knew it was the vitamin E. Why did I know? Because of what had happened before and seeing with my own eyes, giving them vitamin E supplements. Now no vitamin E supplements, yet the richest food source, our real bread, food source of vitamin E had come into our home. And so he got rid of his warts. So when we first started our business and I started teaching, that was one of my testimonies, constipation gone, energy levels, sugar cravings gone away, dependence on antihistamines, completely gone, never to return. And one of my children's warts went away. Well, it was so funny. So years go by and I'm teaching and someone came to me and said, all of your stuff sounds so scientific except the wart stuff. That sounds kind of hokey. Well, I didn't want to sound hokey. And he goes, you really should leave that out of your lineup. So I was like, okay, whatever. So, because I certainly didn't want to be discredited or think, eat this bread. I just didn't want it to sound hokey. So I was like, all right. So we're at a show, a conference, and I'm about to go speak. And I was going to leave out the wart story. I just wouldn't tell it anymore if that was discrediting me. This lady comes up. I always say God had another plan. This lady comes up to my table. She had heard me speak the year before at that conference, and she said, I just wanted to tell you something. Mind you, this is like 15 minutes before I'm to go speak. And she said, I heard you last year, and I took a CD home and gave it to my husband. He's a medical doctor. He listened to it. He wanted me to tell you everything you're sharing is medically correct. And she goes, but I have my own story I want to tell you. She told me this story about her friend. She said, I have a very dear friend that had a huge wart on her thumb. Now, I cannot imagine how big this wart could have been, but she said she had gone to doctor after doctor, and they basically told her there was nothing they could do, that if they tried to remove the wart, it would compromise her thumb. And they basically sent her away and said, live with the wart, okay? She was visiting, and she said, my friend was visiting me one day, and she said, I had just made bread, and even my husband told her, I don't know what you could do with that wart, live with the wart. And she said, but I looked at my friend and I said, I just made bread today, and I once heard this lady talk about how this bread, freshly milled whole grain, richest food source of vitamin E, had gotten rid of her child's warts. Do you want to try it? Now, first of all, would you turn down homemade loaves of bread? Nope. You're like, okay, lady, whatever, I'll take your bread. So she said, but Sue, before she finished the first loaf of bread, the wart was going away. By the time she finished the second loaf of bread, the wart was completely gone. God's perfect provision.
The second loaf, that's not a very long time.
No, I wouldn't think so. Maybe a week, maybe 2 weeks to eat 2 loaves of bread. I don't know. But I just am like, wow. And so I went into my seminar and I shared my wart story, and I have never stopped since, because it's a powerful message of exactly what the importance of vitamin E, of protecting our immune system against a virus. And this is something that we really, really need to think about today. So some years later, at another homeschool show, you know, when I go to these homeschool shows, I only have 45 minutes at the most to speak, and that's getting in there and getting out, you know, so the next speaker can come in. So I have to pick and choose a lot. People always ask me how much information. 5 hours is my normal lecture. Why? From hearing testimonies, going to my books. Why is this? How could this be? So anyway, that day I was scheduled to speak, and I went to my seminar, and I almost passed the wart story, because I have to pick and choose, and I really try to listen to the Holy Spirit. So I almost skipped the wart story, because it can be long if I get too long-winded and embellish it too much. But anyway, so I told it fairly quickly, and I felt like the Lord wanted me, and I stopped there and I shared it. And then something happened that's never happened before, never happened since. In that workshop, I didn't finish, let's just say I came to a stopping point, about 5 minutes left of my time. It's never happened before or since. And I just felt like I was supposed to stop, because to go on would have run me late. So I just stopped. And normally I just would bulldoze on and try to get it as fast as I could. In fact, the person that recorded me at these conferences said I was the fastest talking Southerner he had ever recorded. But anyway, so I just stopped, and I asked, did anybody have anything they want to share? 2 people raised their hand and shared wart stories. One was funny. He said, I listened to your CD. My wife brought it home to me. And I listened to it, and he said, I thought, when you got to the wart stuff, he says, I have to admit, I thought it was a little hokey. And he said, but I had all the other, constipation, sinus congestion, you know, all this other stuff that you talked about. And I said, you know, so yeah, we tried the bread. And he goes, about a month into it, I looked down, and a wart I'd had most of my life was gone. You know, he said, I was shocked. He goes, so people, this wart stuff is real. So I didn't know that this lady was sitting in my class that needed to hear all this. So as I packed up my books and I walked out, she was there, and she had called her daughter to come meet me. They were standing outside the room, and she said, I was walking past this room to go to another workshop, and the Lord told me to come in there. And the title of my workshop is Do Not Eat the Bread of Idleness. So she said, I thought it was a time and home management. And she goes, I get in here and you're talking constipation, and then you start talking warts. And she goes, I'm just sitting here amazed. And she said, I have been praying for months for the Lord to give me an answer to my daughter's warts. She had called her daughter, beautiful 17-year-old girl, started getting warts when she was 12 years old. She now had over 500. Ooh. You could see them in her hairline. I mean, you know, they were like in her eyebrows, little small, clear ones. You know, and she was a beautiful girl. You didn't just look at her and go, oh, your face is covered with warts. She almost had to show you these. But then she pulled up her pants leg and showed me a spot on her leg that she said, I count them as over 250 there. And it was an ugly patch. And she's like, I won't swim with my friends. I won't wear a bathing suit. I won't wear shorts. You know, there it was June in the summer, and she was in jeans. She said, I'm so ashamed of this. And the mom said, we had them completely burned off. They all came back, right? Because we didn't treat the virus. And she said, we've had all kinds of medication we've tried. And she goes, she's currently on ulcer medication. They're thinking maybe it's stress. I think that's what you call practicing medicine, is it? So anyway, she followed me back to the booth where we make bread, you know, at these shows. And she said, she tasted the bread. She goes, this is delicious. She said, how much is the mill? And I told her the price. And she said, you know, we've paid more than that for one prescription drug that did nothing. And none of us could eat it and enjoy it, but it did nothing. She goes, what do I have to lose? She goes, I like to cook. We have to eat. If it does nothing, at least we can eat this bread. And so she purchased a mill and took it home. And I am here today to tell you, 2.5 weeks later, she called, and every one of those child's warts were completely gone.
All 500.
All 500. She said at about 2 weeks, her daughter started itching, which is a sign that they're drawing up and going away. And she was screaming like, Mom, what have you done to me now? She said, because I had tried so many things. And she said, but then 2.5 weeks, they were all gone. And I actually spoke in Richmond, Virginia, a couple of years later, or it was probably more than a couple of years later, because by that time she was married, had her own children, this young girl. She came to hear me speak, pushed up her sleeves. So look, Mrs. Becker, still no warts. That's an amazing testimony. And you hear, we're saying live with it, but what are we living with? We're living with a virus that causes this ugly skin manifestation. You would never consider living with a severe snotty nose, something normal, what we consider viral fever, sore throat. You wouldn't live with that for 5 years, 3 years, 2 years. And yet we're living with that thinking that there's no answer for it. And yet she had prayed for an answer and God gave her one. And interestingly enough, some years later, I did a video conference where I wanted people to come and share their testimonies. I did the whole 5-hour presentation. And I called her. I got her on her cell phone. I'm in Georgia. She's in Virginia. I called her and I said, would you be willing to come? And she goes, yes. And I said, do you need to look at your calendar and get back with me? She goes, no. She said, Sue, I prayed before I met you that if God would send me the answer, I would never turn down an opportunity to tell him. Wow. So that's pretty amazing to me.
That is.
Yeah.
That's amazing. That's a great story. So how exactly does the vitamin E work then to do this, among other things? I mean.
Exactly. So this is what I discovered about vitamin E. Despite a wide variety of symptoms from what appears to be a vitamin E deficiency, it actually only has one job in our body, and that's to protect fats and fatty substances from being oxidized in the presence of oxygen. What is those fatty substances? Well, one critical place is it makes up the cell membrane of every cell in your body. So without vitamin E, these cells are oxidized very easily, breaks down the integrity of our cell membrane. How does a virus work? A virus, unlike a bacteria, it must invade your cell to reproduce. Bacteria can reproduce on their own, but virus has to invade your cell. If your cell membrane is compromised, you're going to be more susceptible to a viral invasion.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So this is how vitamin E works. This is how the bread is so critical. And Dr. Wilfred Shute, world-renowned cardiologist, treated heart disease with vitamin E. And he said bread was our richest source. And when milling came on the scene that took away the Brannon germ, we lost our most important food source of vitamin E, which is Psalm 104 tells us vitamin E bread strengthens and nourishes the heart. But here's what I want to leave people with today. If bread could strengthen your immune system so much, so quickly, to help you protect yourself from a viral invasion, which, what are we so concerned about today? That causes warts, what else could it protect you from? It's critical to protect us from these viral invasions.
Right.
Yeah.
And for that same reason, we're always telling people, get more good fats in your diet, more good fats.
Yes.
Well, we're always, when people say good fats, they think, okay, well, maybe butter, but for sure avocado and coconut oil and things like that.
Olive oil and these things.
But who thinks of bread?
And who thinks that grains and beans actually have fats in them, the good fats, and they have the vitamin E there to protect it. So it's so important that we get God's perfect food. Jesus compared himself to bread, and it's just amazing.
It is. And you know what? You said from the very beginning of this series that it's all about properly making the bread, right?
Yes.
It's not wheat that needs to be villainized. It's taking the wheat berries, grind them up, make some bread. How about we do that?
I think it's a
You
great
want to do
idea.
it?
Yes,
okay.
I do.
All right,
Yep.
so we're going to head over to the kitchen set right after this break. Thank you for supporting Shabbat Night Live. You've made all of this possible, and so this actually makes it possible for others to see into the future, but only if we keep this thing going. How do we do that? Your donations. Thank you for doing it in advance. We'll be back in 2 minutes at the kitchen set. See you there. Well, thank you for your support of Shabbat Night Live. You make all of this possible, even the kitchen set with Sue. And Sue, I learned while we were setting this up that you have a podcast.
I do.
Okay, where is it?
It's called Sue's Healthy Minutes, and it's on any podcast platform that you listen to, or you can go to our website, breadbeckers.com, and you can listen to it right there.
All right, very good.
Yeah.
This is going to be great. So you're going to teach me how to make bread because I've never made bread.
Yes.
So what are we making?
Well, today we're going to just do what's called a quick bread instead of a yeast bread. So we're just going to do some muffins. You know, people think, oh, I don't know how to make bread. Well, you can make muffins, pancakes, cookies, cakes, anything out of freshly milled flour. Okay. All right, you ready to start?
I'm ready. Yeah. Yes. The idea is we're gonna make the flour right here.
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
And they can. This is my original little cookbook. It's called the Recipe Collection. This was in the early days. I compiled all my favorite easy bread, muffins, pancakes.
I like that.
Yeah. And then this is published in 2016. A publisher actually approached me for writing a book on the Essential Homegrown Flour book. This is loaded with nutritional information as well as all the baking recipes from the recipe collection, but then lots of other recipes in this one.
Homegrown or home ground flour being the operative term.
Yep.
Right?
And you know, I told you when I started doing this, I had 5 young children at the time, so it had to be easy for me. So I came up with a few basic recipes, a basic yeast dough. I discovered right away you did not need 10 recipes of yeast bread. Just find a dough that you like and make raisin bread, cinnamon rolls, hamburger buns, pizza dough out of that same bread. The same with my muffins. So we're going to make some banana millet muffins today, but I've turned them into savory muffins by using corn flour and adding some cheese and whole kernel corn, or blueberry muffins, or more desserty type muffins with raspberries and chocolate chips. So basic muffin recipe, you don't need a whole cookbook full, just change up that. And then pancakes, and then I had a coffee cake recipe. And that was kind of, for the first 3 years, that's what we ate out of freshly milled flour. But I would just do different things with that. Donuts. I would make donuts.
We have different mixtures, too. Over here, we have some bags of grains. Now, all these are, I assume, available at your website, because I bought the Red Hard Spring Wheat there.
Yes, yes. So for yeast breads, you have to have a hard wheat. Remember, we talked about the proteins that are in wheat. And so those proteins are in the whole family of wheat, but hard wheat is a higher protein, lower moisture grain. And so that's what you need for yeast breads to get that good, stretchy gluten development. And then soft wheat is your pastry flour. That's more for your cakes, cookies, biscuits, you know. I tell everybody, hard wheat you can use most anywhere. You could use it for muffins and cookies and things like that, but it's better if you use soft wheat. Soft wheat is really better for your pastries.
Now this one almost looks like a granola mix.
Yeah.
What's in here?
Well, I have a better view here in our pail. This is Ezekiel mixture. You know, in the 4th chapter of Ezekiel, God tells Ezekiel to take wheat, spelt, barley, millet, lentils, and beans. Doesn't specify necessarily what beans, but he says, and put them into one vessel. And I think the reason he said put them in one vessel, perhaps, I don't know God completely, his mind, but I think perhaps they made bread out of wheat. They made bread out of just spelt. They made barley loaves. You know, they cooked beans. And I think he wanted him to combine them and make the cake out of all of these combined. And I don't know if you remember how we talked about the amino acid lysine is somewhat low in wheat and grains, but it's high in beans. The amino acid methionine, high in beans. I mean, low in beans, but high in grains.
It's a good nutritional profile right there.
Years ago, I came across a book. It was called God's Recipe. The lady felt like the Lord had given her the combination of grains and beans here. And so we actually have the Ezekiel bread recipe is in both of these books. And we sell it like this at Bread Becker's, already mixed up for you. So this will make 3 loaves of the yeast bread if you follow the recipe. But when my kids were growing up, the Ezekiel bread made like that recipe is a little dense and sweet, but it's very, very delicious. But they're like, Mom, we can't make a sandwich in this, you know. So, but I like the combination of grains and beans. So I started taking that same Ezekiel mixture, and instead of just making the bread out of it, which I love, toasted in the morning with some butter, perfect breakfast. That's all you need. But I started taking this mixture and making our pancakes with it.
Oh, wow. That's a good idea.
Or making muffins with it, or making brownies are really good made with Ezekiel mixture. Or, you know, just Cookies. So I use this a lot for my flour, especially for my muffins, pancakes, cookies, and brownies. It's very, very delicious. I tell everybody when I make the brownies, you know, whole protein, complete protein wrapped in chocolate. Delicious.
What could be better than that?
Well, today we're going to make millet muffins.
Okay,
So, yeah.
let's go.
So millet muffins. Muffins are so fast and easy. I tell people, they'll go, oh, I don't have time, you know, to make bread. Or they'll say, oh, I can't get the yeast bread to come out. Yeast bread is really easy. There is some science to it. There is some variables that make it better some days than others. But there is that rise time and all of that. But muffins, anybody can make muffins. They stir up in 5 minutes and they bake in 15.
That means I can do it.
You can do it, yeah. So this is the little mill, one of the little electric mills that we sell. This is the Wonder Mill. This is the mill I personally used for oh gosh, over 20 years. So easy to use. Remember I told you, in the early days when I would tell people, you know, that I mill my grains, and they would go, you do what? And I would say, I mill my flour. And they go, where do you live? I think they pictured that I had to have a barn with oxen going around treading out the grain. And I'm like, no, it's little. It sits on my counter. And I don't have to do anything but push the button and pour the grain in. And I tell everybody, it's as easy as taking a flour canister out of your cabinet. So the only use requirement, this little cup, you snap it into place, and then you snap the lid on. You want to make sure you get that lid all the way snapped down, and this one's a little tight. There we go. That's the magical sound you want to hear. If you don't hear that distinct snap, you didn't get that lid all the way on, and you don't want to do that, because when you, and then you, see, I'm just doing it because I just do this in my sleep. Can you tell? I've done this a few times, 30-something years. So you twist the little tube there, and you insert it in the port here. Okay.
Oh, it just pops right in like that. Okay.
And then you turn it on. This mill, you need to turn it on before you put the grain in, because the grain drops straight into those milling heads. I'm going to give you a measuring cup.
Okay.
And I'm going to let you measure. I'm going to turn it on.
Do we do a cup at a time?
Yeah, we're going to do about a cup and a little more than a cup and a half. Just dump it. Yep.
Another half?
Yep.
Okay.
Maybe a little more. A little more than a half.
Okay.
A little bit more. There we go.
Good. All right.
So the hopper here will hold 8 cups of grain, and that mills into 12 cups of flour. A cup of most grains gives you about a cup and a half of flour. So I try to only mill what I need, and that's how I knew. A little bit more than that, so that should give us, we're wanting 2 1/4 cups for this recipe. So you can see the grains just dropping right down in those milling heads. They're stainless steel. My favorite part, did you hear the pitch change? It just cleaned itself. There is no cleaning this machine. So
beautiful.
How about that? A kitchen appliance that cleans itself. All right, you ready for this? Okay. So usually I just let it run a few seconds after I hear that pitch, and usually I'm already over here getting my ingredients ready. And so yep, just open that up. And there's
take a look at that.
There we go. Beautiful flour.
Wow, that's good. Very fine.
Yeah, isn't that beautiful? It was so funny in the early days, people would call me and say, what are these brown specks in my flour? And I'm like, that's what you're milling for. That's the bran and the germ. Yeah, and so it's just, there it is.
Beautiful.
How easy was that? That's as easy as taking a canister of flour out of your kitchen.
Yes,
I tell everybody, okay, this is so easy to do if you know you have a kitchen in your house, if you cook already. If you do not know that you have a room called your kitchen, then we might have to, it's a little bit of an adjustment. But if you cook, you can do this.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so we'll just sit that back there, and we will scoot the mill aside, and we are ready to mix up muffins.
Okay.
And normally, like if I were just doing it this home, I would already have my other ingredients measured up in my bowl. So we're gonna make banana muffins today. So I'm gonna let you mash my bananas. And I have this handy little tool called a veggie chop that I love. So here's a banana.
How many bananas do we need to put in there?
I think we're gonna do 2. These are kind of fat, so I don't think we need 3, but yeah. All right, so you just break it. Yeah, it doesn't have to even be that small. Yeah, there you go. And then you're gonna pull it like a lawnmower. You ready for this?
Okay.
It's actually kind of fun. All right.
Look at that.
There you go. Yep.
Done.
Wow. Well, not quite. So go ahead and mash that up a little bit more. We want it good and pulverized. And then I'm going to, there you go.
Good.
That's getting there. A little bit more. And you can go ahead and chop that other one and put it on top.
All right.
Yep, there you go. Just twist.
Twist.
There you
There we
go.
are.
Just go ahead and break that one up. I'm going to reach across and get the measuring cup here and go ahead and get our flour measured.
Okay.
So
Very
I
good.
need 2 1/4 cups of flour. Do you think I've done this a few times?
I think so. I think you're
That
a pro.
was 2. Look at here. That's about a quarter
Look,
cup.
see, there's
Yeah.
about a quarter cup
Yeah.
left. Wow.
So that's what I'm saying. I try to only mill, what I need at a time.
Oops, that didn't lock.
Yeah.
There we go.
All right.
And what do we call this
you're
gadget
looking-
again?
It's called a veggie chop.
A veggie
Isn't it
chop.
amazing? It will make the best salsa because you can control how chunky you want it instead of pulverizing it so
And
much.
it's by Chefin.
Yeah, and we sell it at Bread Becker's on
There
our
you go.
website. Okay, so yeah, and I love it, especially for like egg salad. You put 3 boiled eggs in there and about 5 of those pulls.
Ooh.
It is just perfect. All right, with quick breads, you don't want to knead them. Yeast breads, you need to knead that to develop that stretchy. We talked about gluten, but with quick breads, you don't want that gluten developed, which
Okay.
is why you usually use a soft wheat or a pastry flour or something like that. And so anyway, we've dumped our flour in the bowl. This recipe is in my recipe book. I think it even might be on our website. I don't know. I'll have to check that out. So what you do with quick breads is you want to add all of your dry ingredients. Now we use Natural Mind mineral salt. Again, why they mess with our salt?
I don't know.
Well, they strip it of its minerals
Yep.
to sell it to another industry and leave us with sodium chloride. So you want just a salt that's naturally mined, that's not been heat treated.
So like a Himalayan sea salt.
Well, this
or
is
Himalayan salt.
Redmond's is
Or
what
Redmond
we
salt.
use.
Good.
It's just
Okay.
mined. We sell that at Bread Becker's. So that's a teaspoon of salt. Look how easy this recipe is. Why people complicate a muffin recipe, I never know. Teaspoon of baking powder.
Okay.
Teaspoon of baking soda, because we're going to use buttermilk, which is an acid. So whenever you use soda, baking soda, you need an acid to get that activated. So that's my basic muffin recipe, and then our liquids. But because I'm doing banana muffins, I'm going to add a little bit of nutmeg. This is cinnamon. And a favorite grain, very high in B17, millet.
Millet,
Do you know what
yes.
we do with it in this country?
No.
Birdseed.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, so that's why the birds don't have cancer. And we do. Or we don't know that they do, right? Yeah. So anyway, it's a staple grain in some countries. It's like India, maybe even China a little bit. That's their breakfast cereal. Like we eat
okay.
oatmeal, they eat a millet porridge. Yep, it's so good. And I love just throwing it in things because it's soft and, it's a crunchy enough seed, but it doesn't, it's not too hard that you can just add it right in there. So I add a quarter cup of millet because I want my kids to get millet any way I can get it. So we're going to do all of our dry ingredients. Now this is whole nutmeg, and I'm going to take it and grate it a little bit. I love whole nutmeg, and this actually came from Zanzibar.
Really?
Yes, on one of my mission trips to Tanzania.
This is personally delivered by you.
Yes, they took us to Zanzibar, where's cinnamon and nutmeg. Can you smell it? That's
Yes.
so different than this nutmeg you buy already grated. And I like nutmeg. If you don't like nutmeg, then don't put it in your recipe.
Very good.
Someone once told me they didn't like my blueberry muffin recipe. And I said, why? And they were like, we don't like nutmeg. And I'm like, leave it out. It's your recipe. Recipes are just suggestions. So that's our fresh ground nutmeg. So that's it for our dry ingredients. Gonna whisk that up so that all those ingredients get mixed in, because baking powder and baking soda is activated as soon as that liquid hits it, and it tends to clump up then. So you don't want a clump of baking powder and baking soda in your muffins because it doesn't taste very good. It makes great muffins, but it doesn't taste good all by itself. So I just kind of make what I call a well in the center.
Okay.
And then I'm gonna add my liquids. So I'm gonna add first, I lost my little one. The recipe is a half a cup of oil and a half a cup of honey. Little trick when you're measuring oil and honey, and we sell a Greek olive oil that is truly extra virgin olive oil at Bread Becker's. We import it from Greece, and it's grown by small independent growers, and then a raw unpasteurized honey. Even though you're going to cook with it, you want to pasteurize it, okay? Right. And so the trick, though, when you're cooking, measure your oil first. When you're cooking with honey, measure your oil first, and it'll help that honey slide right out of that measuring cup. Now, because it's been sitting here a few minutes, it doesn't slide out quite as well, but when you measure it and then pour it right away, it slides right on out. So that's our 1/2 cup of oil and 1/2 cup of honey. I love the flavor of the Ezekiel mix, though. It's just got a nice, rich, nutty flavor. There's 2 types of hard wheat that we sell, which is hard red and hard white. The hard white's a little milder. You want to scrape those bananas in there.
Alrighty.
And I've got a little teaspoon of vanilla I'm going to add. Look at you.
There we go.
1 egg. And you want to get all your ingredients in your muffin batter before you start stirring. And then a cup of buttermilk, or I have homemade milk kefir here, so I'm just going to add that. But that's got our good acid in it. That might have been a lemon peel that went in there.
I believe it was.
I had it infusing this kefir here. All right, now we're ready to just stir up. I'm going to see if I can find that lemon peel. Oh, well, I'll find it eventually. So you just whisk it. And you don't want to beat and stir, and even though you might have a mixer or whatever, you don't need a mixer or a bread machine for quick breads. They're exactly what their name implies. They're quick. They're fast and easy. You can see we stirred this up, if we haven't been talking, 5, 10 minutes? 10 minutes, yeah. And they'll bake in 15 to 20.
Okay.
And most of the time I bake my muffins at 400. I think that looks good. You just want to make sure all those dry ingredients are up off the bottom.
Okay.
And that's it. They're ready. We need a muffin pan.
We have
this recipe will make about a dozen muffins if you just do the basic recipe. But because we added the bananas, that increased the volume a little bit, so it usually makes a little more than a dozen. So I usually always have a little
ice cream scoop. There's a good idea.
Oh my gosh, I didn't learn this until my kids were almost grown and gone, and I'm like, how come I was dipping muffins with 2 spoons? This is terrible. Yeah, so ice cream scoop, little other scoops for mini muffin pans.
Okay.
Yep. And I do want to point out, this is a particular brand of muffin tin that we sell. It's a whole line of bakeware by USA. Guess where they're made?
USA?
Yeah.
Wow, what a good guess.
And they are silicone coated, so they're truly non-stick.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So if you don't have the USA pans, which you certainly can bake without them, but I love them, you do need to grease your pan. So I do want to point that out. So because of the extra volume of the bananas, this might make a little bit more than a dozen muffins. So I usually have a little mini loaf pan or another.
All right.
Because it doesn't make quite another dozen muffins. And then these are going to bake at 400 degrees for about 15 to 20 minutes. Usually about 20 minutes.
So we'll do that, and then we'll come back and we'll show you what they look like when they come out of the oven.
Sounds perfect. All right.
All right, well, here we are, 15 minutes later in a convection oven. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay, so let's pull them out. Let's see what they look like.
All right, I've been smelling them.
Oh,
I think they're great. Woo.
There we are. Now, if this was not convection, how long would we do them? 20 minutes? Something like that?
Yes, probably, yeah. With the banana. Ooh. If you just made the basic muffin, 15.
Okay.
But with the banana, blueberries, that adds some moisture.
A
So a little bit more. So I'm going to get our little loaf pan.
Oh, yes, that's right,
out.
too. Okay. Oh, yeah.
And usually you want to see if it's done, I just kind of see if they don't smush in.
Okay.
Or you can always take a toothpick and make sure. Now that one might have to go back in a few more minutes.
Now the toothpick, it has to come out clean,
yep.
right? Okay.
Toothpick has to come out clean.
All right, very good.
But here they are.
Amazing.
How easy is that?
Now there's some breads you had over here.
Yes.
You had brought these.
Yes.
And what's the proper way to break this in the most delicious way possible?
You can cut it or you can just tear
Let's
it.
just
and
break it open, okay?
I'm gonna pour some of our infused sunflower seed oil, Georgia grown, infused with 8 herbs and spices.
Look at that.
And we'll pour that into some.
And it's not tough.
Nope.
It's just got a nice crust on it. It's not overly hard.
Nope.
This is
it's
so
beautiful.
Good.
Yes.
Okay, can I try a little piece?
Yes, you can.
Okay, I'm gonna try a little piece.
I think
Here
you
we go,
should.
taste test.
And then we'll pull those muffins out
The gluten-free guy is now we're going to have some proper bread.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, I'm gonna wait for you.
Oh yeah, I can do this.
Yeah? Yep.
Yep.
I know you can. And your kids will love it. Everybody will love it.
I'm just eating the wrong kind of bread.
That's right. Exactly. Most Americans are.
Wow.
Yep.
Well, that just tastes so natural, so easy. It's
Yep.
not overly sweet. Doesn't taste like
Yeah.
It's so simple.
And in 2.5 hours yesterday morning, I made 16 dinner rolls, 3 loaves of bread, 24 muffins. You know, now I've been doing it a long time, but you can do it. It's easy.
The website again, for people to go learn all about this and get your books and all that. Where do we go?
Yes, breadbeckers.com, and check out my podcast for some great nutritional information. Sue's Healthy Minutes on any podcast platform. Okay. Check out our co-ops at breadbeckerscoop.com.
I need to do that. Yes, because there's a co-op here in Charlotte.
Yes, there's one here in Charlotte. They're all over. Find one that's closest to you, and that is absolutely the best way to get your grains for a lot cheaper price than shipping it UPS. The shipping is greatly reduced.
All right, Sue, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
A wonderful time. It's great.
I love it.
Thank you for joining us. We'll see you next time on Shabbat Night Live. There's the beeper. We gotta go.
Yep.
See ya.
See ya.
Shalom, Torah fans. Give this video a thumbs up and share it with a friend. Tap the subscription button and the bell icon. And I promise to update weekly with in-depth biblical research. Be sure to download the new michaelrood.tv app for both mobile and home devices for even more commercial-free content.